Hi, I'm Brandy. I am a recent grad and a former transition student. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, a little bit of the struggles that I had as a transition student, and then what a typical week looked like for me. Um, I started school in 2014. A couple weeks before I started school, I found out that I was pregnant. So I was still determined, and I finished that first year, um, and had a baby in March. Then I went on and finished the LPN program that summer, um, and passed that, and got my LPN. I went and started the second year. About halfway through that second year, I just wasn't feeling good, and so I found out that I was pregnant again. And then when we had our first ultrasound, we found out that it was twins. Um, so it was a very high risk pregnancy, and I decided that I needed to, take the time away from school and make sure I took care of myself and took care of the babies. Um, and that led into a 3 year time that I wasn't in school. Now, the reason I tell you that is because what saved me was the LPN program. Going through and getting that LPN. So, for you first years, the LPN program is pretty important. You never know what life is going to throw at you. And, having that LPN really helped me. I did not have to repeat the first year. And when I was ready to go back to school, I, did the LPN to RN transition, and, and here I am today. Um, so some struggles I had as a transition student. First, organization was really rough for me in the beginning. It took me some time to figure out what was going to work best. And so, just a tip of what I did, I got a binder for each class, and I got a binder for clinicals. I made a book bag for class time, and then there was a book bag for that I had for clinicals. Um, and I made sure that before every class, I had, everything I was going to need for that class. In the front of that binder, I put a calendar and wrote in that calendar everything that was due for that, for that month and that time frame. Some other things that were kind of difficult were learning how to submit things. That was different from when I was in school. Um, some other things were, just kind of feeling kind of behind because it had been a while since I was in school. Um, so it took a little bit for me to get back to where I felt comfortable with what I was doing in class. So really that's pretty much it. I just had to spend time, a little bit of extra time studying, just to make sure that I was understanding the material. A typical week for me, I would start off on a Friday, which was normally a free day, where we didn't have class. And I would make sure that I didn't schedule any appointments on Fridays, so that I had that whole day to plan for the next week and sometimes into the week after that. So I would, that was what Friday was for, was my planning and my post-clinical paperwork. Saturdays and Sundays, I would spend probably about half the day with my family, on both of those days. Half of that day, I just had to sit everything aside and, take care of my family. And then the last half of those days, I would use for school. If I had on the weekends, my kids had a soccer game or a baseball game, then I would, bring my phone along, or, whatever I was working on, and I would be there on the sidelines or in the benches, um, you know, doing what I needed to get done for that week. Let's see. Sunday nights, I would go over, at least look over and maybe look up some of the skills that I was going to be doing the next day, in the NSL. On Mondays, we had class and NSL, of course. And then if I didn't have clinical on Tuesdays, Monday afternoon, I would be going over my notes, looking at any paperwork that was due, getting ready for anything that I would need to have, come Wednesday. On Tuesday, if I had clinicals, I would, of course, do clinicals. And then if I didn't have clinicals, which most Tuesdays I didn't, most of my clinicals were on Thursdays. Tuesdays were spent studying, getting my homework done, going over things that I needed to have to keep myself, going. Then on Wednesday, we'd have class in NSL again. And then most Wednesdays were my preclinical days. So after class, that was, completely preclinical, getting organized for clinicals, making sure I had everything I could possibly need for clinicals. And then I would, do any studying that needed to be done during that time. On Thursdays, clinicals. After clinicals, I always like to sit down and start my post-clinical paperwork, just because things were, fresh. I could, finish that work, and then on, and then early on that Friday, finish up my post-clinical and any homework that needed to be done, and start planning for the next week. The biggest thing that I think that helped me was I downloaded the books to my phone. I downloaded the books to my laptop, and that's what I used to study. I would do like I think they're called connection checks in the book, the questions that were there. If I got the answer fairly easy, I wouldn't do much more with it. But if I didn't get that answer, I would take, some keywords from that and just plug them into that search bar, and it would pull it up in the text, whatever text you were working in. So that really helped me. Some other things that really helped is I would print out an outline of the PowerPoint, and I would take notes there. And so later on in the week, I could go back and, look over those notes. Anyway, I hope that helps. I really encourage any first years to definitely do that LPN, because you never know what life is going to throw at you. Obviously. And, good luck.